Welcome back, everyone. Ever since the dawn of Halo, there's always been the Flood in the iconic Warthog to drive around the big green man that shoots the alien guys, who is Master Chief. But there's only been one game that has had an actual textured and detailed Flood Hog, and that's Halo Wars 2. Which is really strange considering how iconic the Flood and the Warthog is to Halo fans. Seeing both of them together would be something special and cool in actual Halo first-person shooter game, and not just a top-down strategy RPG. But the first thing I had to do was just lay out all the pieces and parts in this set. Now there's only about 300 some parts in this actual Warthog set, so it's pretty light on the pieces, but I wanted to lay everything out for you and then build it in front of you just so you had a better idea of how this process goes. The Warthog model that we're going to be using today that Mega makes isn't my favorite one that they have ever made, but it is still a solid Warthog and you get the general idea. It looks more like a Halo CE style Warthog, which I think is perfect for this right now, and it's going to look even better once it's all finished and made. Just like that, the Warthog is done and ready to move on to the next step, and this one's going to be a really fun one. In a lot of my other builds that I've been doing with either the Flood or pretty much any Halo vehicle, I want to add a lot of texture and detail to it. Now the one you get out of the box is plenty fine and it looks really good, but I want to continue to make this as detailed and as realistic as possible. Now if a Warthog had the Flood attached to it, it's going to have battle damage, scars, dents, bruises, anything you can think of it's probably going to have. It's going to go through a lot before it gets infected, most likely, so I wanted to have that same feel and style to this piece by taking a Dremel and just going around and making sure everything was nice and dented up. Now I'm just going to clean up the Warthog a little bit with a vacuum, make it a lot easier to see what kind of work we just did on there and see how good it's looking. Now, if you've been a fan of the channel for a while, you know exactly what material this is, but if you're new here, this is green stuff. It comes in a really big roll, and honestly, this is the best way to get it. I've been working with this material for over like 3-4 years now, and it's pretty much the only clay that I've been using for these custom figures. And then once we have it all mixed up, it's time to apply little bits of green stuff all around the Warthog. Now, we need to be really careful with this and precise because we don't want it to feel overbearing with the amount of biomass that we're going to be adding to this thing, but just the right amount to where you get a decent mix of Warthog and green stuff. And then it's time for a little texturing, which is really important to make it actually look like there is Flood on here and not just some clay that you put on there. So I'm going to be using a tinfoil ball, a little bit of water, pressing everything down, and also using my X-Acto blade on the edges. All of this is really important because I want everything to feel very icky and ooey and gooey, just like you kind of see it in the game. Now I'm going to add on a few infected spores to the Warthog, just to make things bump out, seem like things are really growing on it. I felt like this was a really important part of the piece. Adding small tentacles as well is super important just to make it feel like it is growing and alive, and I think they just look really good. You want to make everything feel like it's moving or it has been moving, so wrapping that tentacle around the top of the hood of the Warthog, having it go through the glass, just adds such a cool texture and detail to this specific piece. It makes me really happy. Unlike these poor Marines that are now trapped on this Warthog because they were consumed by the Flood. So I had two faces sculpted into this thing just to add a little bit more of that horror and creepy aspect, which turned out really cool. Then adding all these infected spores along the Warthog just to add even more detail really matters in the end to make sure everything is smooth and that I get a project that if I've been working on for a really long time, I'm more proud of than if I just rushed it and went through and did minimal amount of detail work as possible. But this Warthog set also comes with 3 Spartans. Now these were the named Spartans that were in Halo Wars, and that's good, fun, and cool. But today maybe we're making an alternate universe where they're also infected by the Flood with their Warthog. So I'm going to be working on those guys now and using a lot of the same processes that I just used for the Warthog and for the Spartans. Now, this video in a lot of ways is kind of like a 2-in-1. Yes, I am making this really cool thing that you can just watch and enjoy, but there are some people that follow my stuff that do like to create a lot of the same things that I make, or at least like to know some of my tips and tricks. So I figured I would make this video a little bit more in-depth than some of the other ones, so you get a full idea of everything that goes into making all of these customs. So if you want to also make this stuff that I'm making in today's video, you can pretty much just follow along and make your own Flood Hog and own Flood Spartans as well, which is so cool. The most important thing that I did for these Flood Spartans is just really making sure that they felt infected. I wanted their armor to be broken from their body. I wanted their skin to be overgrowing and having all these weird different spores and tentacles and things that just kind of bursting out of them like they were taken over, which is exactly how I feel like they should feel in the Halo game if we ever get Flood Spartans in the future, which would be awesome. But on top of that, I just think they're so cool to see kind of broken and destroyed and not human anymore. Now, this is debatably one of the most important things that you can ever do to any of your custom work, and that is painting. Now, painting can either save a project or make a project even better than what it could have possibly ever been if you're just an average painter, which I feel like I am an average painter, but I am slowly getting better all the time, and hopefully you'll be able to see some of the skills that I've been progressing with over the years in this paint job. Step 1 is just to make everything a solid black with all the green stuff. Then I'm going to go through with some gunmetal paint and just paint all those little cracks and grooves that we made earlier with the Dremel bit a silver, adding that it was battle damaged and battle scarred. Pieces of metal flew off of the Warthog, and it just looks really good with the Flood. Now we're going to be mixing up 2 of my Vallejo paints together to make the color that I want for the Flood Hog and just give it a nice, vibrant kind of floody texture. Then I'm going to slowly go around and apply it everywhere onto this piece. Now I want to be really careful not to overbear some areas and have a little bit of a spill off, because I still want to show some of that black and green from the Warthog, but I also want the Flood to be taking over the Warthog. It's kind of a fine balance that I'm going for, and hopefully I can nail it right on the head. Now I'm going to be going over with a really dark oil wash just to mix everything and make it look a little bit darker, as well as get into all those cracks and grooves that we made with all that detail work that we did, to make sure everything pops and looks as vibrant and realistic as possible. Now I'm working on a dry brush. Now I wanted to use a off-white dry brush on this piece just to add more texture and detail, and you'll see how much it really helps with the hog. If you have enjoyed the video so far, don't forget to share this with a friend, leave a like, or even subscribe. It helps me stay motivated, and I love to see the growth on the channel as well. Then I'm going to go over the faces again that I added and just add a little bit of black marks so you can see more of the screams and the eyes being open. Pretty morbid, but pretty important if you want them to stand out. Now the Warthog is done. I'm going to go back and work on some of these Flood Spartans. Now I came up with some pretty interesting design choices, and I wanted to make them as creative and different as possible. I don't really like when every single Flood figure looks almost the exact same, so I went for something a little bit more unique here, and I think it turned out really good. Pretty much the same process as the Warthog, normal color, shading, darkening everything, and just making them look as creepy and realistic as possible.